This is the day we have been given. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Welcome to church. My name is Patty Sutton, and I'm a member of the parish committee. I'd like to extend a special welcome to anyone visiting with us for the first time. There is a link in the chat to a form to fill out if you'd like to receive our newsletter to keep up to date with the church happenings, or if you'd like additional information about the church. I invite everyone to stay on Zoom after the service for conversation. We'll be sharing joys and sorrows during that time and conversation about where we are finding hope. A big thank you to Michael Feeney and Carrie Borkowski for being our tech and Zoom people today. We're always looking for more help in these roles, so if you're interested, please let us know. Now I'd like to draw your attention to the calendar for this week, which is now on your screen. This afternoon, we'll have a scaled down version of our snowflake fair, offering freshly cut trees, wreaths, and jams, jellies, sauces, and pickles from Grandma's Cupboard for sale outside the church from 1 to 4 p.m. If there's inventory left at the end of the sale today, we'll have another sale on December 5th, which is Saturday. But don't wait, support the church, find your perfect tree, lovely wreath, jams for your family to enjoy or to give as gifts. The Love Shows Up for Justice standout will return to its normal time next week, Sunday at 1 p.m. Today at 6 p.m., Scituate Pride is hosting a Zoom remembrance for those who have died of AIDS for World AIDS Day. You'll find more information on their Facebook page. Tea with the Minister will be held on Thursday from 4:30 to 5:30. Grab your mug and join Pam for conversation from the comfort of your own home. And as with the in-person teas, you don't have to come for the whole time, just drop in when you can. The men's ministry will be meeting at the church again on Saturday morning for bagel breakfast and to continue their work of cleaning up the grounds. Everyone of all ages and genders is welcome, so please bring rakes, clippers, and shovels. At the heart of our life together is a promise of how we will be together. Our covenant expresses this promise, and we say it every week to recommit ourselves to live together in love. Let us say it together. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to cherish the living earth, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. Each week, we light a candle, which we call a chalice, for the container which holds it. The chalice and its light remind us of many things: the light of truth, the circle of love which holds each of us, the light which shines within each of us. Today, as we light it, we remember that without darkness, we cannot see the light. Using these words from the UU religious educator, Jackie James. We need both, dark and light and dark. In this Advent season of waiting, we remember that darkness is nurtured and protected us before our birth. Lighting our chalice, we reclaim the balance and wholeness needed in both light and dark.
If you have to light it now and to hold it up to one another, acknowledging the light that is within us and around us. This Advent, we are looking to hear words of comfort, of challenge, and of good news. We look for these words every year, but more than ever, as we mourn those who have died, worry about our nation, and look towards a Christmas without many of the familiar celebrations, rituals, and people. In our worship this December, we will hear each week the words of a poem found written on the wall of a cellar in Cologne, Germany, where Jews had hidden during the Holocaust. As the anonymous writer could find hope in those dark days, so we too are called to embrace hope that we can do what needs to be done to bring more light into the world.
I believe in the sun. I believe in the sun. Even when it's not shining. I believe in the sun. I believe in the sun. Even when it's not shining.
We give thanks for the glimpses we catch of untiring hope, even in the midst of fear, of challenge, of struggle. Even when our view is obscured by clouds of doubt, may we be aware of the flame of hope within us, that we might glow with its brilliance from the inside out. Our first Advent candle glows green this year. Green is the color of growth, and it reminds us to nurture the sparks of hope within and among us, that they may flame up ever brighter. You are invited to light your candle of hope at this time, and let us sing our opening hymn, In the Bleak Midwinter.
Snow had fallen, snow, in the bleak midwinter, small child and mother, weave the magic spell, touching hearts with wonder, words can never tell. In
This is the time in the service where if we were together again, I would invite the children and anybody who wants to come down front. And I have to say, I miss a lot about our being together, but when I miss you all most is during that time. I miss our conversations and the way it's not just the children who take part, but people of all ages who share their thoughts. Today we're talking about hope, and if we were together, I would ask you, what does hope mean? What's the definition of it? Where do you see hope around you? We're not together, but I invite you to write in the chat your definition of hope or where you have seen it. And if you're not able to write and you have an adult near you who could write it for you, do that. But adults, I'm inviting you to share your words too. And I can't see them right now, but I will really look forward to seeing your thoughts on hope after the service is over and I get to look at the chat. So I encourage you to keep writing and keep thinking about hope, and you can do that anytime during this service. And sometimes I think when I invite people to write in the chat, you think, oh, I don't have anything to say, or what I say doesn't matter. But listen to the story I'm going to tell, a story that we would tell together if we were here together. And I think perhaps you'll see why it's important that each of us shares our thoughts and our experiences. So every Sunday in Advent, we're going to be talking about a Christmas movie or cartoon, maybe not a full-length movie. And today we're doing the classic A Charlie Brown Christmas. I don't know if any of you got to watch it before today's service, but my guess is that most of us have seen it at some point. And you may remember that Charlie Brown starts out feeling hopeless. He doesn't quite understand what the meaning of the season is. He feels left out, and he talks to Linus and Lucy about his problems. We know that he's not quite hopeless, though, because we see him check the mailbox to see if anybody sent him a Christmas card this year. And even though, I have to say, it always makes me really sad that nobody sends him a card, but he has that hope still. His hope is still there. And Lucy suggests that maybe he needs to take part in the Christmas play they're putting on, that maybe there he'll find hope. Maybe he'll find connection, I think, is what she's really trying to say. And one of the things I think we all relate to about Charlie Brown is that he often doesn't really understand how to relate to other people. He's a little awkward, but he tries his best. And it's not quite working. So Lucy suggests, you remember, that he go and find them a Christmas tree. And I never quite understood, but they all expect like a big tin Christmas tree. I don't know who has tin Christmas trees. But they go to this lot and there's like pink trees and blue trees. And clearly that's what Lucy is expecting him to bring back. And Linus is with him, and Charlie Brown comes upon what he says is the perfect Christmas tree. And even Linus, who is an optimist, thinks that this tree is not perhaps the right tree. But Charlie Brown is insistent that this tree needs him. This tree needs him. In a tree that needs him, Charlie Brown finds hope. So Charlie Brown brings the tree back, and it's not what they wanted. And Charlie Brown asks the universe, really, who can tell him the meaning of Christmas. And you remember perhaps that Linus then recites the beautiful poetry of King James language from Luke's version of the story of Jesus' birth. And Charlie Brown seems to find hope in that. And he picks up the tree and takes it home, and he puts a decoration on it, and then, I don't have a decoration, but it bends over like that. And he walks away for the moment, having lost his hope, not because of his own dashed hopes, but because he thinks he has damaged this tree that embodies for him what is needed, that for hope for him has become about the growth and safety of this tree. But seeing the growth of hope in Charlie Brown, his friends have all followed him. And as he walks away, they pull all those decorations off of Snoopy's doghouse, and with a little magic from Linus's blanket, they make the little tree into a full-blown, beautiful Christmas tree. And as Charlie Brown comes back, they sing to him of the good news of hope born again in our world. And I think one of the key messages of this is that hope lives in each of us, and it's really hard for hope to die. We see that in the poem that we just heard our choir sing. But sometimes our hope dies down as a candle may flicker low, and it's then that we feed each other's hope. The tree fed Charlie Brown's hope, Charlie Brown fed his friends' hope, and then his friends fed Charlie Brown's hope until at the end they're all singing together. So one of the reasons I encourage you to write about hope in our comments is that you never know how your words about hope might offer hope to someone whose hope is low, because we feed each other's hope. And we do that when we come together, even when we're not together in our body. We are together through Zoom, through other ways. So I encourage you today and this season to feed each other's hope. And if your hope is one that has burned low, receive what is offered to you. We're now going to hear a little more about the music of hope from Beth.
Our worship series this Advent calls on the power of sung poetry that inspires those who hear it to a brighter tomorrow. It has been a difficult time in this pandemic for singing to be restricted. In its absence, we have been reminded just how important it is to sing together. Indeed, music has often been the soundtrack of hope. So your choir has been hard at work to prepare a season of music appreciation for you, as well as reflection on the power of music. Someday we will once again be able to join our voices in song in our sanctuary. But for now, rather than turn away from music in sorrow, we will turn toward the story of music and deepen our appreciation of its role in healing, change, and reconciliation. This morning, we present to you the theme anthem for this series, sung by the University of Laval Chamber Singers, that features the poetry of the anonymous Jewish person during the Holocaust. These words were found scrawled on a wall and have now been shared with the world, reminding us of the resilience of hope. May we never forget what can happen when evil is allowed to go unchecked, and may we always use our music, our art, our poetry, even our simple acts of kindness as inspiration to create goodness, not evil, in this world.
I believe in the sun.
Even when it's not shining.
I believe in love.
Even when I don't feel it.
I believe in God.
Even when God is silent.
I believe.
I believe.
I believe.
I believe in the sun. I believe in the sun. Even when it's not shining. I believe in the sun. I believe in the sun. Even when it's not shining.
Hear these words from Emily Dickinson on hope. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. I invite you now to get into a comfortable position of rest. I invite you to be as quiet and still as you can. I invite you to a deep breath and a deep listening posture, perhaps eyes closed or fixed on a candle, as we prepare to listen to the voice of our hearts. Let us open our hearts to mystery. We meet here again in the stillness of our hearts and the stillness of this sanctuary and the sanctuaries we have created in our home spaces for this period of time. Sanctuaries of stillness where we may breathe again and remember who we are, what we need, what we seek, what we hope for. In this stillness, we give thanks for the love which holds us, for the love which leads us on to find hope when we feel hopeless, and which leads us to offer hope even when we may not know we are doing it, to others. In this stillness, we renew our sense of hope. We remember that we are not alone in the work we are trying to do. We are not alone in the visions we are trying to live out. We are not alone in the justice we are attempting to make real in this world. We bring in our stillness the places where hope is needed. We hold in our hearts those who have died this week of COVID, those who have cared for them, both as healthcare workers and in their hearts as family and friends. We remember all who mourn. We remember all who are living with that illness and with all illnesses. We hold them in their fears in our hearts, even if we do not know who they are. We remember also the crew of the Emmy Rose lost at sea, and for their families and for all who are mourning them. We pray for our nation during this time of transition, and for the vision of a country united in justice and health and safety for all people. We pray for ourselves, for our families, for our community. In silence now, I invite you to listen to the voice of your heart. Advent is my favorite season. I say this every year, but this year especially, we need its reminder that only after sitting in the places without light, the places of doubt, worry, fear, and despair, can we see the light. I find it telling every year that though the society around us rushes into full Christmas mode on the day after Thanksgiving, or even earlier, in the life of the church, we observe a season before Christmas, a season of stillness, of waiting, of peering, of hoping. This year, Advent meets us where we are, as we look to a long, cold winter of time apart from those we love, as we worry about our nation's future and mourn those who have died and suffered under this pandemic and our continuing history of racism. This would be a hard year to go into the full-blown joy of Christmas. I, for one, am not ready right now to proclaim joy to the world. Are you? We need December songs in a minor key before we can modulate to the major one. But we do need the music. Music encourages, music connects, music returns our past to us and helps us believe in the future. A future this year when we will sing together again. And though it isn't safe for us to gather this year in our beautiful sanctuary to sing carols old and new, we can still fill our hearts with music. This year in our Advent services, we'll be leaning into the music of this season, particularly music of our Unitarian Universalist tradition. We will be looking at how certain carols offered signs of hope, peace, love, and joy in their times and still sing of them in our own. We begin this Sunday with the carol known as I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day. It's a shortened version of a poem by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow called Christmas Bells. Longfellow wrote it after taking a walk on Christmas Day, 1863, while he pondered the message of the bells chiming from the church steeples of Boston and Cambridge. 1863. You know from the date that the Civil War was on Longfellow's mind as he took that walk. A fierce abolitionist, Longfellow also loved his country and was sad at the way it was being ripped apart. He had come to believe that the war was necessary to free the slaves and restore the Union, but at what cost? Though the Union had won many of the battles, the outcome of the war was still very much in doubt, and there had been so many battles and so many killed. Longfellow mourned all of them, and mourned with many of his friends whose sons had died, young men who had been part of Longfellow's extended family. But he mourned more than their deaths and the fate of those held in slavery. His eldest son, Charlie, had enlisted in the Union Army in the spring of that year. In July, he had almost died of what was called camp fever, probably typhoid. Longfellow had traveled to Washington, where Charlie had been lodged in the home of a Unitarian minister, and there he nursed his son until he was well enough to travel home to recuperate more. In August, Charlie returned to the Army, and Longfellow resumed worrying about him. On December 1st, as he and his family were finishing dinner, a telegram was delivered informing him that Charlie had been seriously wounded at a battle in Virginia on November 29th, so 157 years ago today. The telegram said, incorrectly as it turned out, that Charlie had been shot in the face. When Longfellow and his younger son Ernest arrived in Washington, they eventually learned that Charlie had been shot in the back with a bullet traveling through his back, leaving entrance and exit wounds and missing his spine by less than an inch. Shortly before Christmas, with his son well enough at last to travel, Longfellow brought him home to Cambridge for what would be a long recuperation. So the near loss of his son and the question of whether he would make a full recovery were in Longfellow's heart as he took that walk and listened to the bells that Christmas Day. But his heart held yet more grief. In July of 1861, his wife Fanny had trimmed their daughter Edith's hair. In his poem, The Children's Hour, about his love for his 3 daughters, Longfellow refers to her as Edith with golden hair. Fanny wrapped up the snipped curls in paper to preserve them and went to seal the packet with hot wax. As she tilted the candle over the paper, some of the wax landed on her very flammable muslin dress. A breeze fanned it into flames. Though Longfellow tried even with his own body to put out the flames, Fanny died the next morning, leaving her husband scarred in body and in spirit. Christmas, which Fanny had loved, and which had been a time when they opened their doors to welcome family and friends, became an especially hard time for him. The first Christmas after Fanny's death, he wrote in his journal, "How inexpressibly sad are all holidays." The entry for the next Christmas, 1862, read, "A Merry Christmas, say the children, but that is no more for me." The entry for Christmas of 1863 was left blank. Perhaps his energy went into writing the poem instead. The poem begins with his listening to the bells ringing out a sweet message of peace on earth, goodwill to all, and then his arguing with the possibility of sweet peace. He thinks of the cannon thundering in the south, and with the sound the carols drowned of peace on earth, goodwill to men. It was as if an earthquake rent the hearthstones of a continent and made forlorn the households born of peace on earth, goodwill to men. These verses, which tie the poem to the war, were left out of the carol when it was later set to music. But hearing them, we are reminded of just how hard it was for Longfellow and others also grieving the war, the tragedy of slavery, and their own losses, to feel hope. So many had been left forlorn. Forlorn comes from an old German word, for, meaning completely, and lorn, meaning to lose. So forlorn isn't just sad, as we often think of it. It means feeling as if you'd lost everything, or everything that matters to you. From that emptiness of hope and joy, Longfellow argues back to the bells. There is no peace on earth, I said, for hate is strong and mocks the song of peace on earth, goodwill to men. But the bells ring out the last word, reminding him that they are not saying all is well now. They are ringing out a message not of sweet, simple peace, but of that deep peace, which comes when we realize that we are not alone in our sorrow or our suffering, when we realize that we are held by a love which knits us together within ourselves and to one another. Longfellow, one of our great Unitarian poets, reminds us that we are not handed peace, but are called into the work of peace, together embodying our hope for that world where all live in the fullness of shalom, of goodwill. Though he never stopped grieving for his wife, his hope carried him, enabling him to continue offering his vision of unity, justice, and love in his poetry. Let us sing Longfellow's hymn now, remembering the strength and the promise of our hope today. We don't just sing of hope. We live hope and we act in hope. This season, you are invited to offer hope to people around the world by supporting the work of the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. You'll find the link on the screen during Beth's music for reconnecting. And now, we wait for justice, but we do not wait to work for change. We wait for restored health, but we do not wait to work to heal. We wait for wholeness, but we do not wait to work at binding brokenness. We wait for peace, but we do not wait to work to eliminate hatred. And so, my friends, like bells ringing out the news that the sun still shines even on cloudy days, fill the night left by sadness with messages of hope. Go into your lives humming the tunes that keep the hope alive in you and that spur you on in your work of justice and reconciliation. And now, even if there's no one there to hear you, or even if there is someone there to hear you, raise your voices and repeat after me, "Do not be afraid." Go in peace and in joy.